Thank you, Francia. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all again. It looks like we have probably the whole committee here this morning, along with all of other members. So we will start off by doing a quick roll call, and I will just call you in the order that is on my screen. Frank, you have the privilege of being first.
Thank you. Frank McGowan, City of Asheville appointee and voting member.
Thank you. Rachel, you are next.
Good morning, everyone. Rachel Nygaard here, Buncombe County appointee and Buncombe County staff voting member.
Thank you. Carl, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Carl Alguire. I am the Asheville appointee and I am a voting member.
Perfect. Thank you. Nikki, your turn.
Good morning, Nikki Reed with the City of Asheville. I am staff appointee and a voting member.
Thank you. Tim?
Good morning, Tim Love, Buncombe County staff, voting member.
Thank you. Dee?
Dee Williams, appointed by the City of Asheville, D. Williams and Company Incorporated, Eagles Wings Community Development Corporation, and voting member.
Perfect. Thank you. Kelly?
Good morning, Kelly Foster, Mountain BizWorks, non-voting.
Thank you. Tara, I'm not sure if Tara came back in yet. Are you there, Tara?
Tara Brown, Self-Help Credit Union, and I'm a non-voting member.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think Yasmin is the last one before I go.
Good morning, Yoselin Gonzalez, Mountain BizWorks, non-voting member.
Thank you. And my name is Maui Bang. I'm the MCCF chair, county appointee, voting member. So I think we went through our whole list here. If I missed anybody, let me know. But it looks like all 7 voting members are present, which is awesome. So with that, we have a slightly lighter schedule today. I know last month it was a little bit of a marathon meeting. So today, hopefully it's a little bit of a lighter schedule. So we will just jump right in. Hopefully everybody got a chance to review the meeting materials that were sent out yesterday. Yeah, we will cover those items as we go through. So let me share my screen. Share window. All right. So here is our agenda for today. Make it a little bit bigger. So we just have a couple of old business items to review and then a few new business items to cover. With that said, I'm just reminded that we do have a new MCCF committee member who would be a voting member, but I'm not sure he is on the call today. His name is Hunter Guzman, and we've had some challenges connecting this month. And so if Hunter is not available today on the call, we may need to skip this part right here. Do y'all know if we need to vote on amending the agenda if Hunter is not present?
This is Rachel. We could still make note of his appointment during that time.
Okay, sounds good. So with that said, we'll jump right into our agenda items here. And so the first item is approval of minutes from our last meeting from October 7th. So if anybody has any questions or proposals, otherwise we will just entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Carl. Perfect. All in favor, raise your hands. I'm just going to raise it like this because my screen is blocked for the moment. Let me know when you've got a vote, Rachel. Or a count, I should say.
I'm
Yeah.
not seeing everyone on my screen.
Okay, so everyone keep their hands up. So it's me. Rachel's up. Tim, Frank. Maybe if I stop sharing, does it help if I stop sharing?
I got it. Thank you.
got it. Okay. Anyone opposed? Raise your hand. Yep. So I think we passed that vote to approve the minutes. Perfect. So moving on, the next item from our agenda is updates from the Trigger Point Task Group, informally called, which is essentially Carl and I. And we spoke earlier this week just to briefly discuss if it makes sense to make any changes to the trigger points in our underwriting guidelines at this time. And so it was a brief conversation. Carl, I don't know if you wanted to share just some highlights from that.
Sure. Yes, we were discussing, what are the things that would be important for us to understand on the notes that we're guaranteeing. And in that we've had so much back and forth about sort of what we might like to do as a committee, but may otherwise be restricted based on, legal from county and city. We thought that maybe we would, throw out the things, these are really basic items that we would like to know about loans that we've guaranteed. And then if, Frank and maybe Nikki or whoever's responsible for connecting with the legal teams of these groups, that, we could see if there's a way to articulate it to their satisfaction. And I think that, the basic things for us were, if one of these loans has had a late payment or a missed payment or has otherwise indicated a need, an action, or an event that may lead to default, if we could have that brought forward to the group as soon as it was known by the lending agency, we thought that that would be sufficient.
Thank you, Carl. And I think I see that Karen just joined. Welcome, Karen. Good to see you.
Morning.
Good morning. So we already did roll call, but if you would like just to do a quick intro and on whether you are a voting or non-voting member, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sorry I had to be late. I'm Karen Amansky from Self Help, and I am a non-voting member.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you for that recap, Carl. We were just discussing, Karen, on the trigger points, what makes sense and whether it warrants us making any changes to it during this time. And so Carl and I met earlier this week, and the biggest takeaway is that we are not proposing any changes to the actual trigger points themselves, but if we can find some sort of mechanism to either add a new trigger point or just some sort of feedback loop above and beyond what we have currently to be in the know on any signs of delinquency earlier than what we currently have. Because later we'll see in the Q3 report that Yasmin will share with us, it'll show on there what the number of loans and the dollar amount that are in delinquency, but to have some indicators ahead of time if and when the lenders find out about that would be helpful for our committee. So at this time, we'll open it up for any questions or additional thoughts or discussion.
Dee has her hand raised.
Oh, yes, Dee, go ahead.
Thank you. Just wondering about the refinancing. I've served on a number of credit committees before, and a lot of times to mitigate risk, especially when a loan is transferred from one institution to another or needs a guarantee. It looks like there is some risk or cash flow problem that has been detected or whatever. And so I'm just wondering about that. And I understand the reluctancy not to do that, but I think that's something we need to know. And we do need to know if an institution is carrying a loan, has been carrying one, and then refinances and for a greater amount of money, or does it just pay itself off, or what? I've just noticed that we probably have had one or two to default that way. So I'm seeing that as a pattern, and I've seen it before in other institutions. So I just make that recommendation. Y'all can do whatever you want, but for me, that is a trigger. Thank you.
Mhm.
Makes good sense.
Yeah, thank you, Dee. And thank you for continuing to remind us of the potential, like, yeah, just the importance of refinance and kind of the potential signal that brings. I know someone had their hand up, but just a real quick comment is that I believe, again, we'll see on the report later that there has been one loan payoff. I do believe that came through a refinance. And so perhaps our partner will comment later and refresh us on how, if that was rolled into a new larger loan, or if that was just the same amount under and being restructured. All right, I see, Tim, you have your hand up.
Yep. Thank you, Maui and Carl, for sort of putting some thought to this, and Dee, as always, for sharing your thoughts. Just a general comment, I think the group should identify those trigger points that we think are valid and then go from there. I wouldn't want us to make any assumptions about what legal may or may not think regarding those trigger points. I think we should identify what data is important to us. I'd also take this opportunity to make a distinction. There are a few items that I think our legal collectively would say we cannot collect, and those are traditionally going to be PII types of information. The chicken and the egg with the MCCF is whether or not we can have a closed session discussion, and the answer to that is no, from a legal standpoint. That doesn't mean that we can't discuss loans at some level of specificity. The thing for us to be aware of, though, is this is a public meeting, and if we don't need to share certain types of personal information, we shouldn't. Like business name as an example. But there's nothing necessarily that says we can't. So I just want to make sure that we're establishing kind of a good understanding of, we can't go into closed session. That's a no-no, forbidden. We can have discussions around loans. We just need to make sure that as a committee, we're doing right by those that are applying and not oversharing, if you will. So just want to make sure everyone's kind of hearing that, or if you've got concerns or disagreements with what I've said, just let me know. That's my interpretation.
Thank you for that reminder, Tim. That was very helpful. Yeah, I do remember we have sort of evolved the, so that loan presentation document from since even when I started. And I don't believe we have a loan presentation today, but just our last meeting, when we looked through, I noticed that there were a few additional data points on there that was helpful for me in particular. For example, like the credit score, and I don't recall us originally having that. And so that would be one example of some little bits of additional information to help add some color to the loan request, but that doesn't necessarily, add too much private information from the borrowers, or applicant. Any other thoughts or comments or questions or concerns about potentially amending these trigger points to add in that extra layer of indicators for delinquency before it being formally categorized as a delinquency? Let's see, Nikki?
That was me. Yeah. So, given that we're on this topic, I think I'll just segue just for a second in a related update regarding our check-in with our legal staff. And since I don't see it otherwise on the agenda, I think it's relevant to bring forth here if that's okay, Maui. But
Yeah.
so I would say I think what was really productive with our meeting with legal is just to understand that is a resource for this group, so that we can ensure that our governing documents are where we need them and can help us with our decision making here and our oversight activities. And so I would say what we discussed with our legal team was just doing exactly that, just looking at some of the existing documents and making sure that they provide us with a clear understanding of our role, and also taking into consideration these specific updates that we are requesting as a committee, and allowing legal to then frame those updates from a perspective that would conform with all the legal requirements of city, county, and of course our partner lenders as well. So again, that is a resource. So I think any changes that are recommended or anything that comes forth from this task group, I believe a productive process would just be to provide those updates, whether it's just a outline of suggestions or any kind of written paragraph, just to say, here's what we're hoping to accomplish, and then allowing legal to make those updates in the document itself. And what I could see is that we could either, if the committee, wanted to send those along, we could have legal then, provide those edits to a document visible so we could see them, and then we could bring it back to the committee, perhaps do one sharing as just an initial level set to share out those changes, and then allow everyone to kind of take some time with those changes, really digest them, and then come back to a second hearing of this committee to approve those. So just wanted to share some process points that I think will really help us on our path here. I see Carl's had his hand up, so I will defer to him.
Yep. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you, Nikki. I think that's exactly what we were envisioning was, can we get a clear grasp of how legal would articulate this, as opposed to debating language, then sending it to legal and then having them change it, which is kind of a loop we feel like we've been stuck in here a little bit. So give them the broad strokes, see what they come back with, and if we could agree at that point, I think we'd save us all a lot of time.
Rachel? Thank you, Carl.
So 2 questions. One is, in the meeting with legal, did we share the markup draft of the operating committee rules of procedure document that our group went through last time? And is that that review already in process? I'll ask that and then come back.
And that is correct, Rachel. So we shared that. So Janice Ashley is our city attorney and works in the city attorney's office. And so she'll be doing those edits. Her general comments is that all of the suggestions looked good from her perspective. And I think she was just going to take those into consideration and work on that final draft for us to share with the committee. So that is in process. I need to check in with her to see how that's coming along. And then, some of her point of view, which is really helpful, is that there may be some edits, again, that just speak to the function of the committee that we just need to do as a matter of housekeeping, right? And so I think she was already looking at some other edits that we would need the committee to review, but that may be helpful towards our process right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So my follow-up question was the trigger point conversation that Maui and Carl have been having. Will that be part of that same document, and can we roll that in?
Yes, I think if there are some broad strokes that we can obtain, so just some feedback from that trigger point task group, if that can be shared with me, I can then take that forward to legal. And again, it would come back to this group with those suggestions incorporated with legal comments and revisions, which we can put on screen and then let the committee digest and then come back. Again, I'm suggesting a second hearing so that we can allow that to be really well vetted.
Mm-hmm. I do have one comment, but I'll wait. I know Karen has her hand up, so Karen, feel free to share.
Yes, so mine is more of a question around, I guess, the procedures for this. So the city and county have signed that services and duties agreement, which outlines the trigger points that they felt needed to be in place in terms of ending the program or putting a moratorium on new loans. And so I guess I have a broader question about what are documents that actually legal needs to review versus like working documents for the committee. And it seems that if there's trigger points that we are coming up with that also would put a moratorium on it, then that would need to go to legal and figure that out. But if it's things that it's just like, for example, this committee is thinking about what do we want to monitor on a regular basis, sort of before we even get to that, it wouldn't shut down the program, but we want to think about it. Is that really legal, or is that just sort of good, prudent operations for this committee that's outlined as what the operating committee should be doing anyway, already in that services and duties agreement? And then separately, like on the whole operating agreement or operating committee agreement, that was my question too. So it's a question because I thought that we were really just trying to align the meetings piece, and kind of that's what legal was looking at. So what do the city and county need to agree upon? And then if they need to agree upon it, actually doesn't need to go and be signed if it's an update versus just things that we are doing already underneath what they've looked at and reviewed under the services and duties agreement. That's part of the purview of this committee.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Karen. Yep, Nikki.
I think I can assist here because our legal effectively said, shared some of the same feedback. So namely, again, just as a reminder, we have these two major documents, right? One is this duties and services agreement, which is a legal document, a legal contract between our government entities and our service providers, our banking institutions. And so really what we focused on in our meeting with legal was the Mountain Community Capital Fund Operating Committee Rules of Procedures. And you're absolutely right, Karen, that Rules of Procedures is really kind of a reflection of how this committee then functions with the duties and services agreement as a guiding document. There is a lot of leeway with our ability, because it's really a functional document, a guidance document, if you will. It's not necessarily a legal instrument, right? But from my perspective, it's just extremely helpful to have our legal staff who's very skilled at ensuring that, I don't know, they're just very talented at making sure that we cover the right things. And for me, that's a comfort level and a resource that we have that might be able to improve our efficiency too as a group in the review of these documents, which is why I was looking forward to the opportunity of having legal, take all these comments that we've been sharing, take some of the feedback from the Trigger Points task group, and really do that heavy lifting of revising that document, and thinking too about just how we can improve it to have better clarity. So I want to say I do agree. It's not necessarily a legal document that is the rules of procedure, but having our attorneys help with some of that language, I think, is a benefit that we could utilize. And then if we seek to also look at the duties and services agreement that is a contract, of course, that would involve our legal team and the other contract parties as well, having their legal. So I think it's probably a two-step process. Like, let's just make sure that our rules of procedure are very clear, and do that first, again, utilizing legal's help and coming back to this committee to make those final changes. And then if we seek to do anything with the duties and services agreement, we'll take that up as our next task. But I think right now it seems like everyone is still focused in on making sure our rules of procedure are correct. So I hope that answers your question, Karen, and provides a good process.
Yeah, it does. I think from the committee perspective, though, I really like our attorneys too and think they do a great job. I also would want to make sure that it's not, that this committee has the ability to say, you know what, legal says we this in the operating committee, but we feel differently, and that's okay. I mean, if it's not something that's going against the rules, I just want the committee to feel like they have that ability, that it might not be a difference in opinion, but that there is that ability to make a slightly different decision because it's not a legal document.
So maintaining flexibility, I think what I'm hearing you sort of allude to, Karen. Rachel, you have thoughts?
Do we have any changes on the table for the services and duties agreement?
I don't believe we've, in all of our conversations, because that's kind of like the overall governing document. I'm not sure we had any like actual changes to propose to that document.
Got it. So that means our body is the group that gets to adopt changes to the operating agreement, which is great news. I'm happy to hear that things are underway to get legal review on the set of the markup, the very thorough markup that's already been done. It sounds like we have the ability to add in, if Maui and or Carl will send Nikki a summary of the additional information that we want to monitor. We're calling it trigger points, but in fact, as Karen pointed out, it isn't necessarily something that would be at the threshold that would create a moratorium or, you know, something like that. It really is monitoring information. I'm in support personally of adding the missed payments, late payments, and refinance. I think all three make sense. We have 3 legal teams that are available to us with city legal, county legal, and the self-help legal. Happy to send it through all of those for input, and ultimately I think I land where Karen is. We take their advice and guidance and then use that to decide what to update. And my hope is that we can get that document updated sooner rather than later. This is feeling like it's dragged on for a long time and deja vu. And I know that we want to spend our time getting into the non-procedural pieces of our work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was a perfect summary of all that has been discussed so far. And I think that that is a wise and prudent kind of direction going forward is, you know, can we kind of go back, do the last round of proposals or edits while the attorneys are sort of already looking at it, and then kind of just finalize it and sort of move on. And so with that said, and you mentioned the 3 pieces of information that would be helpful. So late payments, missed payments, and refinance. And so I just wanted to give another just quick opportunity for anyone to propose any other indicators that would be helpful for us to know as a committee that might shape our decision making going forward with new loans. May not shut down the whole fund, but what if there's any other piece of information that would be, you know, indicators that would be helpful that we may have missed that's not one of those 3. Carl, I didn't know if you, I know we spoke, it was kind of a brief. I don't know if you had any other thoughts on what to add to that list of 3.
No, I think that's what we sort of thought were really the only information that anyone would get. And if that could just be passed along to the committee. Do you need me to do anything else, Nikki, to articulate that again to you in an email, or what's the next step for us?
I think that'd be super helpful for me. I was just seeing what my last correspondence was with our attorney and hoping to follow up there so that we can understand our timeline. So anything that I can take forward will help me out. So yeah, if a quick email can be drafted, that'd be great.
Will do.
Great.
Perfect. And just to Nikki, I appreciate you taking the ball and running with it with your legal. I know you're still waiting for updates on timeline, but again, just to be crystal clear for us, kind of expectations going into the next meeting, it sounds like if you hadn't gotten a good draft back from your legal team, then it probably makes sense for us to not revisit this topic until we have that draft to review. Does that sound like a good course of action?
Sounds great. And we'll be sure to coordinate in advance of our next meeting to get an update so that we're able to know as we craft the agenda. So we'll put that on our reminders, and I'll reach out to Janice right now.
Perfect. And thank you, Carl, for being willing to put together the few quick blurbs there to send to Nikki. Love it. We're doing teamwork here. Awesome. So if there are no other comments or thoughts on the trigger point discussion or general proposals to that rules and procedures document, then we can move on to new business. Last chance going. Okay. Sounds like we're ready to move on. I don't believe we have Hunter on the call yet either. So Tim, I will defer to you if you don't mind to just give us like a really quick overview of the process for Hunter joining. He and I haven't had a chance to touch base to formally onboard, but if you want to just briefly introduce him to the committee, and then next time when he's actually on the call, we can have him also introduce himself as well.
Sure. So Hunter Guzman has been in the community for a long time. Many of you probably know him through his work with ERC Broadband, which is a local internet middle mile provider. They don't provide direct service, but many of our public entities like the city and the county leverage their fiber to provide internet access to their facilities. Hunter was one of 2 applicants for the county's position, was appointed by the Board of Commission. I believe at a September meeting, our second meeting in September, I can confirm that. But looking forward to bringing him onto the team, and I think he'll be a good addition.
Perfect. Thank you. Yep, and that'll round us out to 8 voting members. Make it a little bit easier to get quorum, especially in the summer months when people are traveling. So thank you for your update and for your work there, helping to move that along. I'm just looking at our minutes too from last time to make sure we don't have any other loose ends to tie up. Let's see. Talk to the trigger points, legal. Okay. Yep, I think we're good. So at this time, we will move on to the Q3 report from Mountain BizWorks, and I will stop sharing my screen. And Yasleen, if you would like to share yours with the report, we can kind of just talk through and digest the numbers together.
Sure thing. I am having some trouble with Google Meet and sharing, so I may not be able to share the report. Maui, could you share that?
Yep, I have it up. I can share that as well.
Excellent.
Let me zoom in here. Right on my window. Can everyone see that? Do you need it a little bit more zoomed in?
Yes.
Does that look good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Great. Okay, well, total new loans in Q3, we did 10 of those. The total loan count was up to 34. Total dollars lent is 1.5 million. The total guarantee used at origination was 704. The outstanding loan balance is around 1.4. So you can see between that the original balance of the total dollars lent and the outstanding loan balance as of Q3. And let's see here. So we still have the same 2 delinquent loans. They have not been charged off yet. So we have not had any late payments on any of these loans, no other delinquent balances aside from the 2 previous loans that we've discussed. No charge-offs this quarter yet. The paid off loan was a refinance. And I believe that success story was shared a few months ago with the committee. The reason why we're tracking as a payoff, we did do a refinance. However, again, it was in the best interest of the client, and allowed us to bump up the amount in order to increase revenue. So that's just for tracking purposes. We went ahead and noted that there. 33 of the loans have been to Black and Brown owned businesses, which is 97%. 4 have been Latino owned businesses, and 13 to women owned businesses. So with that information, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Yasleen. I did have a quick point of clarification there, just so I can understand fully. Up here in this first section, excuse me, where it says total guarantee used at origination is 704,000, and then outstanding guarantee is 654,000. So that's since some loans have been being paid down. So my question is, does that mean that out of the $2.5 million lending amount here, what essentially our committee has left to work with currently is just under 1.9 million? Is that how we're reading it, or is it that we currently have the 2.5 million that we're kind of?
No, the maximum lending amount is 2.5. Yeah, you're right. We do have right on 1.9 or so of available, guaranteeing any balance that it's paid off, and any loan goes right back into the pool as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. That makes sense. Yep. Just wanted to clarify that. We've got some questions. Tim? I think you were first, Tim.
Yep. Thank you, Maui. And Yasleen, as always, thank you for preparing this information. I would like to ask that we confirm the maximum lending amount number. I'm just doing rough math, and I could be wrong doing math in public, but it looks like that 2.5 number is the Dogwood plus the county plus the city. However, there was the initial infusion into the program of about 450. And so it seems like maybe that's not reflected, but probably should be. And then additionally, I think we should confirm, I got 2 items, I'm sorry to keep going here, but has self-help received, Karen, that $2.5 million? Like, do we have it in the accounts so that we actually do have the guarantee funds secured, or is there, I know, for instance, I believe the city is still working through their agreement. So I just want to make sure that we're not over guaranteeing, if you will, without the funds in hand.
So the new city and county funds are actually going to Mountain BizWorks, if you recall. So I don't know where those are in the agreements. Just one, I will say, it looks just on that same line, the maximum lending amount, I would think would be a little bit higher by 15%, because right, the guarantee is 85% of the loans. But in terms of your main question, those are agreements with Mountain BizWorks. That money's going to them, not coming into. So we're not a part of those conversations.
Thank you, Karen. And Yasleen or Kelly, if we could, tag that, and if we want to do a follow-up to this call, that would be great. I think the spirit of this, like, we all know the direction we're moving in. I just want to make sure that we've, truly finalized the transaction so that we are able to follow up on what we said we were able to do. So.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll get Matt to confirm as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Rachel?
Did Tara have your hand up?
Oh, yeah, sorry, since I'm sharing, I'm having trouble seeing all the hands. It wasn't
I don't see it currently, but I think.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that this document was available because Dee and I are also part of I'm going to turn my camera off because I think I'm having issues, but Dee and I are also part of the Economic Development Working Group of the Reparations Commission, and they've been very interested in city and county data related to how Black businesses are accessing resources or not. And I just wanted to make sure that this document was available so I could share it with the working group of the commission, but I found it with our publicly posted documents for this meeting. So I answered my own question, but just want to appreciate Mountain BizWorks for putting this report together so that I can share it out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tara. And real quick, just to add to that comment of, having these statistics and data points available to the public, I'm in the process of working with someone to sort of get a general annual report published and or just out there for access. And I mean, I'm not going to share this whole report, but I was pleased to see essentially the impact that MCCF is making, down here in the demographic section, and some of the other data points around how much we've loaned out, guarantees, amounts. And so, yeah, there's multiple avenues to share this information out. And so that's just something behind the scenes that's happening now as well, that annual report. So with that said, let's move to Rachel. I think you were next.
Thank you. I was considering trying to summarize the structure of the county funds that are going to MCCF and the method or mechanism that Mountain BizWorks is using. However, it is complex, and I would rather have Mountain BizWorks explain it. And I'm wondering if we could invite Matt Raker to come to a future meeting and just talk that structure through with the group so that we've all heard it and have a chance to fully understand it and ask questions. So that is to also include Buncombe County's funds are fully executed, so that contract is active and available for guarantee.
Got it. Yasmin, do you think that's something that Matt would be willing and available to do possibly in our next meeting?
I can certainly bring it up to him and see if he's available. My general understanding of it, I know it's a very complex process that kind of happened there, but I believe the general understanding was, because the ARPA funds could not be sent over to a essentially a committee, we had to, they were sent to Mountain BizWorks, and then Mountain BizWorks would then send the guaranteed percentage to Self-Help. However, we definitely get an update, but we had not received the funds as of, I believe, a few months ago. So we can bring Matt in for sure.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be helpful. Just hopefully by then, another month out, we'll have some more updates too.
It essentially has to do with the fact that these federal funds
Yes.
need to be spent within a time frame.
Yeah.
And so we've come up with a structure that the funds can be spent and an equal amount can be deposited for guarantee. That way the actual federal dollars aren't just sitting as a just in case and serving as guarantee. But the exact mechanism for doing that, I'd prefer that BizWorks explain. So let us know, Yasleen, if he can't make it to the next meeting. I think it would be worth getting him on a meeting after that.
Perfect.
I will touch base with Maui once I confirm with him.
Sounds good. Thank you, Yasleen, and thank you, Rachel, for bringing that up. I think those are really valid points. Nikki, you have your hand raised.
Sure. This is great information. And so I was just curious, when we talk about the inception of the fund, do we have a working date for that? I just want to get it in my head. So 34 loans since what was our first initiation date?
2019.
Great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 3 years. That's awesome. I did have one more question too, but I see Tara has her hand raised. So Tara, you can go next.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to make sure that I'm able to explain and others are able to explain sort of how different programs work in conjunction. So I just wanted to check my understanding that the bulk of these loans are also participants in the Catalyst program or loans made through the Catalyst program. And Yasleen, I don't know if you have the exact data on that, but if you could share kind of your understanding of the interplay between Catalyst and MCCF, just so I can make sure I'm reporting it correctly.
I don't have that specific data on hand as of now, but our Catalyst program began last year. Yeah, I mean, I can get those numbers to you.
Thank you, Yasleen. Thank you for your question, Tara. So my question, or another point of clarification, just kind of, again, like Tim said, doing math here behind the scenes. So this amount right here, this 55%, it talks about percentage of loan funds utilized. So this word here, utilized. But as far as I understand it, again, I could be understanding wrong. This outstanding guarantee is really the MCCF portion, or essentially what we're quote unquote on the hook for. And out of the 25 or $2.5 million, I believe that would be much lower than the 55% utilized, because I did the math and it looks like it was that 1.4 million of the outstanding loan balance divided by this 2.5 million that we got to that 55%. And the reason why I bring that up is just to clarify that how we're defining this utilization here, going back to my previous question, we basically have used a lot less of the fund than this 55% and essentially have a lot more room to guarantee loans.
Yeah,
not 50%, but a lot more room. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so the percentage of loans utilized is off of the outstanding loan balance. And I believe this has changed a little bit, but due to the preview, when we received the first tranche of money when the fund started, we had a maximum lending amount of $530,000. So the reason why it's taking it off of the outstanding loan balance is because we had a cap at that time. So that is different now. We can certainly switch it to take the percentage of the outstanding guarantee and not the outstanding loan balance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful so that at a glance, some of us are in the weeds and numbers and some of us may not be as much, but at a glance, we can quickly see the percentage of how much left of that larger loan fund we have to work with.
Yeah.
And so it sounds to me like it's a lot less than this 55, which means we essentially still have maybe more like 70% or so. I didn't do the exact math, but it's a higher amount that we have left to work with to pledge and guarantee and make an impact with this fund.
Right. If you look on the side on the notes, it does say it's the percentage taken off the outstanding balance. So that's why it was off the 1.4 instead of the 654.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if our maximum lending amount is 2.5 because that's the amount that we have in the fund. But yeah, I mean, we could, I'm sure we can also add a line in there of the percentage of the actual guarantee amount.
Yeah, would it be helpful for the rest of the committee if we had that? Because again, due to my calculations I did just now, it looks like our guarantee is only 26% of that $2.5 million. And so for us to know, hey guys, we've been doing good work, but we still have 75% left of this loan pool to use out as guarantees. And I think that would be helpful for me. I don't know if it'd be helpful for others. Tim, you had your hand up.
Yes, concurring with Maui, I think great suggestion. I would also like to add, to me, this kind of circling back, like this is kind of what an item I think Karen was talking about earlier, like this type of edit, like I don't think this is within our span of control. And so we should just make those edits. I don't think there's a need, for instance, to have like a legal review of that type of change. but I'm open to hearing that discussion. The other item I would like to add that Karen said, and it was subtle, but that maximum lending amount is the total funds received from Dogwood City County over the life plus 15%, because the guarantee is an 85% guarantee, and we can work through those numbers. So that I just say that to say that the number should be higher.
Which then would bring that 25% even lower, because if that number is even
Correct.
higher, and that's 654,000, that is the outstanding guarantee that essentially, quote, we're on the hook for if for some drastic reason everybody were to default and we're on the hook for paying out that 654,000 currently. It was still a very low percentage of the overall fund.
Totally agree. And a great situation we should all be super excited about, and beating the bushes with self-help and our other partners on the call about how we get additional loans and market this fund and these guarantees with Tara. But
sounds to me like a great pivot towards that, creating the buzz and the marketing and the getting the word out once we're like done with in the weeds with this document that Karen has so patiently helped us with for the past few months. So I'm really looking forward to that. Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts or suggestions on this wonderful report that Yasleen has put together for us? No. So hopefully, Rachel, you've kind of taken some notes on these suggestions that we made, and Rachel will send out those draft minutes, and that'll be helpful, Yasleen, too, if you reference that the minutes to kind of see the items that we would like to incorporate for next quarter's report.
Yep. And before we move on, let me just make sure that I captured this correctly. Yasleen, I'm sorry that these all three start with your name. So let me know if this is right. Yasleen will confirm the maximum loan amount, guarantee amount, and percentage of loans utilized. Yasleen will invite Matt Raker to attend a future MCCF meeting to explain the mechanism being used for the Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds. And then also Yasleen will share information with the operating committee about the extent of the connection/overlap between Catalyst program and MCCF. Sound okay?
Sound good.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate you always clarifying and making sure that everything is captured correctly. So with that said, I'm sharing windows, so I think I can just toggle back over to our agenda. Perfect. So that was the Q3 report. So at this time, we will entertain any new loan proposals or requests from our participating lenders. I think Yasleen already mentioned to me that there are none from Mountain BizWorks this week. Tim?
sorry to be talking so much, y'all. And I do not have a loan proposal, but I do have a proposal related to loans.
Okay.
And would love some feedback from the group, in particular, Yasleen and others. I think given the nature of the amount of funds we're dealing with, and these are public funds, I'd like to talk about a process where loans are shared with this group on some type of regular schedule in advance of this meeting. I don't know what the right timing is on that, but I do think we need to have a little bit of rigor in when those come. Like, I don't think it should be the day before. I recognize business is fluid, but I do think we need to have a process. And so open to what that might be. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 3 days, I don't know. But if I'm the only one that feels that way, y'all can say that as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tim, for expressing that. We have a few hands up. Frank, I saw you go up first.
And I'll just mention, as the person responsible for getting the materials posted, we've been really good about getting the agenda and what we have on hand posted 72 hours in advance, which is what's required. We've had some updated materials that get submitted, but at a minimum, 72 hours would be preferable for everything. More though, I think gives us time to really contemplate it and, just have some time to sit with the documents and really formulate those questions.
Thank you. So that would be, it's typically by like end of day Monday, right? That you and I have been working with to get the documents.
That's correct.
Got it. We'll go to D and then we can circle back to kind of as a group collectively weighing in on that. D, thoughts or comments?
Yeah, thank you. And I concur with Tim. When we first started out, you have to understand there was a different dynamic. We were thought to be more of a rubber stamp than in a process that took into accountability that the initial funds that were used were taxpayers' money. They were public funds. And so it was sort of said to allow the lenders to pretty much have free reign over whatever was going on. And that's how this process where had short notification and pretty much limited input, and we're pretty much expected to act, and I don't want to call it a rubber stamp, but pretty much that was it. And with the lenders being the primary source of making the decision. In fact, I think it was outright discussed that they had that purview. And then I'm glad somebody besides me, Tim, thank you for bringing that up. I'm trying to be more laid back and more out of process, if you will, because sometimes things don't come out exactly right out of my mouth, or it's perceived not to be. So I concur with you. It comes down to accountability and the fact that we are dealing with taxpayer funded monies here. And so it's a process that does need to be vetted. As with any lending or credit committee that I've ever been on, if they don't have the capacity to ask about who's borrowing and material questions, then you are no more than a rubber stamp. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dee. I appreciate that. And thanks again, Tim, for bringing that back up. So going back to the timeline discussion, so what's been happening is, we'll get the basic documents of the meetings. So the agenda and the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. At the very least, those will be submitted and posted by the end of day Monday. But we've had some documents kind of trickle in. For example, when we had our special meeting, I think there were some updates to that loan proposal. So that document kind of came in, in the last day or so before our special meeting. And so, again, to your point, Tim, that business is fluid and sometimes we get some pretty urgent requests for loan funds. Yasleen, do you think it's realistic and doable to maybe request the loan proposals, maybe even like the Friday before our meeting? So if you had a presentation for today, we would have gotten that document last Friday so that we can then get it to Frank and his team to post it on Monday. And then also the committee will have essentially the work week to look through and digest that loan proposal.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and knowing that there may be extenuating circumstances where we may need to add something sort of in that last week because it would be too long to wait until the next window, the next month when we meet. But in general, if we can kind of aim for that Friday to have the loan request document, that would be helpful. And Tim just said, thank you, Yasleen. That's awesome. And I did want to also just do a quick query from the group. In general, we've got me submitting those meeting items to Frank and his team to post. And then I then send a separate email to the committee. And I haven't been on top of getting that email sent essentially as soon as I submit to Frank. But I wanted to propose and also ask, Frank, is there a way to notify the group when you post those meeting materials, or if it's not too much work, so that essentially I wouldn't be doing double work on my end to
Yes,
like
I'm happy to
everyone
do it.
with the same exact set of documents.
As soon as those materials get posted, and we have folks that are that do our website work because, I don't think I could be trusted with working on our website. But as soon as those get posted, they let me know, and I will be happy to share with this committee what materials are posted and reference the site. I can handle that now, and it's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Much appreciated. I just figured since, it's essentially duplicating, I literally copy the same email, change some of the words, send it to the committee. So
we got it.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. So if there are no more comments on the new loan process and preferences, we can move on to public comment during this time. Oh, I think Dee, you have your hand up. Oh, you're good?
Good.
You're good. Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure we got everything taken care of. So at this time, do we have any public commentators, Francia?
We do not have any public comments at this time.
Okay, perfect. So I think we got through all our agenda items for today, everyone. I appreciate your help and your attendance here and just all your input as usual. This is definitely a joint collective effort. So I hope that you all have a great Thanksgiving. I'm sure we'll collaborate over the month with some of these ongoing task force items. And so just be on the lookout for communications. But other than that, I will see you all in December.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.